In March of 2021, LEGO released the Microfighters AT-AT vs. Tauntaun set. Just a few months prior, in August of 2020, they released the $160 AT-AT Walker. And at the time that this came out, I said in my review that I thought it was the best AT-AT LEGO had ever released. But then, in late 2021, as we all probably know, they released the Ultimate Collector Series AT-AT Walker. One for the ages. And seeing as all three of these sets are currently available, I just had to compare the $10 AT-AT to the $100 AT-AT to the $1,000 AT-AT, with some slight liberties taken rounding the prices there, obviously. Normally when I make a comparison video, not all of the sets in the video are currently in production and available at retail price, or even cheaper in some cases. You can find some of these sets on sale. So that makes this comparison video kind of unique in a way. It should help you decide whether or not you should be spending $10 on an AT-AT, $100 or like $1,000 on one. And there is definitely a good case to be made for each particular model depending on your use case. If you do enjoy this comparison video, like would be incredibly appreciated. And since I can't do one of those fancy YouTube on-screen polls anymore, make sure you guys let me know in the comments below which one is your favorite and why. The unboxing experience for each set is somewhat unique. On the smaller $10, really $20 AT-AT here, you just have a thumb tab on the side, you pull it open, and when you get to the inside, you're going to have a couple of different instruction manuals, so one for the Tauntaun, which isn't what we're here for, but the other one, of course, is specifically for the AT-AT, along with our bag one here. So there's our $10 AT-AT, we'll put that aside. The unboxing experience for the $160 AT-AT is practically more of the same. There's not a lot special going on with this particular set, but as you can see, it's just going to be a lot more bags and a lot thicker instruction manual, and the expected build time on a set like this is probably 2 to 3 hours. Meanwhile, the build time on the $10 AT-AT is like 10 minutes, so just to give you an idea of the difference in build time for the two sets. When it comes to unboxing, though, the Ultimate Collector Series version is a completely different beast. As you can see, you get this great picture of the front of the AT-AT, then it opens up to this nice Imperial logo with some snowtroopers and walkers, and then it opens up to the first scene that you actually see AT-ATs in Episode 5 through the binoculars of the Rebel Troopers, and then it opens up and you have even more pictures of the walkers from the movie. It is just a completely different animal. And on top of that, each box has a highlight of which part of the build it specifically is, and on the back side you have some tracks of the AT-AT's feet. It's pretty incredible. And inside of each of the boxes I just showed you is a corresponding manual to build that specific part of the set. And to build this entire thing, it could probably take you between 10 and 20 hours as a rough estimate. So just to give you an idea of what you're getting into with each of these sets, it's about 10 minutes versus a couple hours versus really going to take you a few days to really put this together. The other thing about the building experience with the $1,000 version of the AT-AT is you do get a little bit of extra literature about the actual history of the walker from the movies and the build process and a lot of stuff like that that can be a little bit extra and fun for a lot of people during the build. So pretty happy with the instruction books for this one. The only minifigure that all three versions of the walker share is the AT-AT pilot, and in each case they are exactly the same. The one in the middle is from the Microfighter, so he's got his stud shooter there, but he's also got a pair of binoculars. He's just a little bit extra for the play. And then the two that come in the play scale and the two that come in the Ultimate Collector's version of the AT-AT are exactly the same with the exact same weapons. With the full selection of figures, you get a much better idea of what you get for your money. That Microfighter only gets you that one AT-AT pilot. Meanwhile, in the Playscale version of the Walker, you get 6 minifigs, which is pretty good at that $160 price point. I think when you compare it to the $800 only getting 9 minifigs, it makes this look really, really good, which I think this set should have had 9 minifigs, to be fair. But the $800 version only comes with 9 figures, which is a bit of a shame put in context here. The General Veers and Snowtrooper Commander are exclusive to the UCS AT-AT. General Veers with dual molded legs there, which are not present on the version in the cheap cheaper set. And then the Snowtrooper Commander just has a torso there with a blue dot instead of just different dots. It's just a basically slightly different design. It's like a variant of Snowtrooper, which I didn't really know existed, but it's still really cool to have it in this UCS version. So overall, I think the best figure selection is really going to go in that $160 set, especially for the money. I feel like they skimped out on Snowtroopers in a set that could hold 40 Snowtroopers and only included 5, just to entice people to buy the Snowtrooper Battle Pack at $20 each, because they clearly have the money when they've already spent $800 for this. The play features for each model are going to vary drastically. On the $10 version here, the Micro Fighter, you can move the legs just a little bit to pose them, kind of, but even when you want to pose them in different positions, they really don't mesh well because of how big the feet are. So it doesn't really work as it would work on one of the bigger models that we have off to the side. I do really love how much you can orient the face and head. You can definitely twist that around in ways that aren't necessarily accurate. But from a play perspective for like a little kid, I think they would love something like that. And then you actually have a little control panel and area for your AT-AT driver to sit. And there is no like attached stud shooter on the build of the AT-AT. So, of course, the driver himself is holding the actual shooter in his hand, which allows you to have some sort of thing to fire off at the Tauntaun, which is obviously included as a counterpart in this particular set. A bit more directly here, we'll compare the Playscale version to the Ultimate Collector's version, because I think that's where people really want to see the differences between AT-AT models. So inside of the head of the smaller version here, we can fit all 3 characters with the 2 AT-AT drivers and General Veers, and there is also some small control panels at the front, but it's a very tight fit, as you can see. The AT-AT drivers barely fit in side by side, but this is cool because it is the only smaller Playscale version of the AT-AT that does fit 2 AT-AT drivers and General Veers all in the same cockpit. So that was really neat at the time to get both. Meanwhile, on the UCS version, you have a monstrous interior here. There is just so much space for your characters. You even have General Veers standing at the back with the doorway that leads through the neck and into the main bay of the walker. It's pretty incredible. And you also have really nice control panels and viewing ports at the front of the cockpit as well. Underneath the head of the UCS version are the cannons, which actually can move back and forth. I don't know if I'd count that as a play feature, but they do move accurately. And then for the smaller Playscale version, you actually have some spring-loaded shooters. They definitely don't look as good as that, but from a play perspective, just being able to push on it and fire off at the Rebel scum is really nice. The next feature shared between these walkers is Luke Skywalker hanging from beneath them. So you can see the scale of the UCS version of the walker, especially at this angle, is really impressive to see Luke up under there. It looks really, I mean, obviously it's a Lego set, so realism is not like the one-to-one thing, but it looks pretty realistic there, seeing him dangle beneath. Meanwhile, on the Playscale version, not quite as impressive. I mean, if I get way down here at an angle, maybe it's starting to look similar, but really that looks for the scale on the big one is just, yeah, it's second to none. But from a play perspective, the playset does have a much better function hidden in the front compartment of the walker. And with that winch, you can very easily pull Luke up and into the belly of the AT-AT, where he can actually open the compartment underneath it and then throw in the thermal detonator. And while the $800 UCS version does have Luke hanging from the string, it's a bit of an unfortunate omission that it doesn't actually have the ability to raise him up and into the belly of the walker. He's just stagnant on the string. It does fortunately still have the particular piece that you can drop down and throw the thermal detonator into the belly of the walker to blow it up. That's great, but yeah, it's just unfortunate you don't have that same function to pull him up to the top there to actually perform throwing the thermal detonator inside. You just have to imagine. Accessing the troop bay or interior for both models is substantially different. For your Playscale $160 walker, all you have to do is lift away and up on the side panel, and just like that, you are inside. And you can actually lift up both sides simultaneously, and while it does look quite ridiculous to have both things up like that, that is how you get full and complete access to the interior. These other side panels don't open at the front, except for this top one, obviously, that I showed earlier with the piece for pulling Luke up, and the back ones don't open either, but the very back panel does. We'll get to that momentarily. Once inside, you'll see you have a relatively accurate interior for such a small set, down to the blue chairs. You've got a spot for your E-Web cannon, and around the other side, I've got a couple snowtroopers sat in there with a speeder bike behind them, and to pull the speeder bike out, what you have to do is pull up on this, down on this, and just like that, your speeder bike is good to go and come out and go into the battle. So we'll leave that aside so we can compare the speeder bike designs, but as you can see, it's a pretty nice interior for the price of the set. Your options for accessing the interior on the $800 UCS model are definitely a bit more difficult than what you have with the $160 playset. Like, that's so easy to just pull the panel up, but on this one, you do have more. So I think there's definitely a give and take there. So you can actually pull away on this little side panel here and lift it up. Now, I thought this was supposed to like hold itself up, but it keeps wanting to fall back down. Nonetheless, it does give you somewhat easy access to that bit of the interior where you can see your Snowtrooper Commander in there and some of that midsection interior. It's nice. I like it. Now you actually have a pair of panels on the front and back that can be opened like this to give you access to the speeder bike bay, of which we will definitely take one out to compare the speeder bikes here in a moment. But yeah, you have a whole speeder bike bay, obviously way more detailed than the speeder bike bay in the $160 set, so that's definitely great. And it is a symmetrical build, so you actually have two more speeder bikes, or at least I added two more speeder bikes in on the other side from those Snowtrooper battle packs, so that's definitely an option for you. And then if we move to the front of the build here, you can see there's just a ton of seats for your Snowtroopers, of which I have placed a few in there for right now. But that's not the only way you can access the interior. You can actually take the entire side panel off. So we'll lift this top panel piece off, and then we can lift this up and away. Sometimes it'll break on me, but hopefully if we put it down softly, it won't. And then you have full access. Just so easy to pull these panels off once you have that side panel off, and you are good to go. You have all 40 of these sand blue seats. You can see rows and rows of seats, and I did a YouTube video filling up this AT-AT with all of the Snowtroopers, so if you want to check that out, it'll be on the end screen of this video. It's pretty insane, but you can see with the few Snowtroopers that are included in the set, it still fills out somewhat nicely, although very sparsely populated. Like, yeah, you got 5 Snowtroopers in the set. You're just not going to be able to really fill it out the way that you can if you go buy a bunch of those Snowtrooper battle packs over there. And then you actually have an extra detail on this set that is not present in the $160 model at all, because obviously on that smaller model, this whole back section is basically just for that speeder bike, but you actually have some engines or power generators for the walker here that actually give it the power to walk. So I think that's really cool. But just as a generality, the interior detail on this particular set is way, way better than what you have on the Playscale version. And that is to be expected for your $800 Ultimate Collector Series model, but it also just has to be said. As far as the speeder bikes go, we have similar yet different designs. The one on the right is from the Playscale AT-AT, and the one on the left is from the UCS version of the AT-AT. And I'm not a fan of the one on the left that kind of leans down just a little. I like that this other one holds itself up straight, and the big difference being that you have the big megaphone blaster underneath that, and that's what's holding it up, versus this one, which doesn't have that particular function. Like, it has a megaphone blaster, but it's not like a load supporting thing here. It's actually down lower, so you can see big difference between the two there. Generally similar looking, yet somehow surprisingly different for two speeders that came out just a little bit over a year apart. I'm kind of surprised they went with different designs and didn't just use the same design for both. Like, I don't know why they didn't come up with this design, because they ended up using this design in that Snowtrooper Battle Pack back there as well. Like, where was that design a year ago? You could have just used the same thing for all 3 sets, which would have really been optimal. But yeah, I don't know. It's just different. Another important difference between the 2 sets is how you can pose them. With the Playscale version of the walker, it's really simple to do. You just move the legs. That's all you got to do. And you can instantly change the pose of the walker to be something else. Also, with moving it, you just pick it up. It's like as straightforward as it gets because of its compact size, or at least comparatively compact. I suppose if we really want to talk about compact, the Microfighter AT-AT takes the cake. But when you throw something up next to a behemoth, massive $800 AT-AT, anything's really going to look compact. So with this one, to pick it up, you want to grab it from underneath and just kind of lift it. and you're going to be good to go. I also like picking it up by the legs, but they say in the instructions, I think, not to do that, so you probably shouldn't. And then, as you can see here, we have the display plaque. And while the display plaque is nice for your display, and I like having it next to my Ultimate Collector Series walker, there's actually a hidden screwdriver behind the display plaque. And so what you have to use this for is to actually pose the UCS AT-AT's legs, because you can't just move them like you can the smaller walkers, which is unfortunate because it means you got to stick it in here and then you got to do some twisting. You can see it slowly turning there, and then I'm going to need to turn this one the other way to make it go forward. And I really do like the mechanism that they have for the UCS AT-AT. I think it works wonderfully. It is just a bit annoying to have to do this anytime you want to pose your UCS AT-AT. It just takes a minute. But at the end of the day, with a collector set like this, something that you aren't going to be moving a whole lot, something that really is made to sit on a display and not do much, it does make a lot of sense that you have to have something that's going to allow your model to stay sturdy, yet still have the ability to pose. So they kind of had to find that happy medium there with adding in these really tough gearboxes that are really strong and can hold the very, very heavy weight of the walker while still allowing you to do some somewhat reasonably cool poses. When it comes down to it though, I'm a much bigger fan of the posability of this smaller model. I think it just looks better with the way that it can stand. I've always preferred these $100-ish AT-ATs ways that they stand versus this $800 set. To rein us in here near the end of the video, I just got to talk about the immense detail and care given to the UCS model. It is leaps and bounds above in the looks department compared to the $160 and $10 version of the AT-AT. As good as this one looks, it definitely doesn't compare to the UCS model. You can see like open Technic pieces on the insides of the legs, and they really do a great job of cleaning that up on the more expensive version, which you would hope they would for all the money you're paying, but you never know. With Lego, sometimes they skimp out on some things. But yeah, and this model is definitely appreciated the extra mile that they went to get practically everything right down to the nitty-gritty details. I love it, and I think a lot of other people do too, considering the reaction this set has gotten since its reveal in November of 2021. And that's not to say the $160 model is bad. If it's all you can afford, or if it's all that you have the display space for, it is a great option. It's the second best AT-AT Lego has ever made, with the UCS model, of course, being better. And if you can afford the $800, and if you have the space to store something as big as this, and you do need a certain table or a certain spot for it, for me, I ended up putting it over there behind my UCS Imperial Shuttle. If you've got that spot for it, and you've got the money for it, man, go spend that $800, you know, like, go live your best life, put that big old UCS AT-AT on your table and shelf, and enjoy looking at it every day. And I think you can also get a lot of enjoyment out of the squinting AT-AT at $160. And while the Microfighter AT-AT is somewhat included in this video as a joke, it actually does serve a good purpose. It's a great gift for kids. Like if you're going to a kid's birthday party or whatever and you need a gift, this is something you'd buy for them. And I think it also makes a good desk piece. Like if you have a job where you have your desk, or your work at home, or your school, whatever, like you're in a dorm room, college age, this could be a really great small walker to kind of have with you to remind you of your big old AT-AT at home, or just be your only AT-AT if it's all you want to spend the money on. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of good reasons to buy any of these particular models, and I don't look at any of them as bad. I know the Microfighter is not accurate, whatever, but it obviously serves a different purpose than the $160 AT-AT, which also serves a different purpose than the $800 AT-AT. Although I think there is a bit of crossover between the two. Basically everything this walker does, this one does, but better, except for the ease of posing and the ability to pull Luke Skywalker up on the cable. Otherwise, I mean, money aside, this thing does everything better. So yeah, I wanted to put together a video comparing the 3 currently available Lego AT-ATs. I hope it maybe helped you make a purchasing decision if you were trying to determine whether or not you should spend $160 or $800 on an AT-AT. Maybe seeing them side by side and really compared would help you with that. And if you do end up buying either of these AT-ATs, or even the small one, I've got some affiliate links in the description below. I'll get a small percentage of the sale, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. But let me know in the comments below what you think of the current lineup of Lego AT-ATs, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching.